Welcome to CrossTalk. We talk all things Holy Cross. My name is Danielle Wiegandt, the president here at Holy Cross, and we're so glad that you've joined us here for episode 10 of CrossTalk. Our sponsor today is Team Construction. Thank you for your partnership, Team Construction, and all you do to support Holy Cross. Well, today we have a treat. We have 3 different guests here today, and these guests are going to talk a little bit about the Y Club, the Holy Cross Y Club. And I know many of you who are graduates watching today probably remember your days of maybe Y Club, or you heard about the club. Maybe some of you who are watching have never heard of the Y Club. So we're going to learn a little bit today in our segment with Mr. J.R. Rawlins, who is the moderator of the Holy Cross chapter of the Y Club chapter. And thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dr. Wiegandt.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit of Y Club. So for those in the audience who don't know anything about what a Y Club is, how would you explain it?
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer briefly, but I'll try. It's affiliated with the YMCA, and the YMCA is very invested in youth development. You know, we all know like the summer camps they run and that kind of thing. They've kind of morphed, as a lot of organizations, into where they're doing all sorts of different youth engagement type of things, which is great. And the Y Club is kind of short for that affiliation, and it's essentially a mock government kind of organization where students get to participate in mock state government and mock United Nations. So we do all sorts of debate, we do all sorts of research, we play a bunch of different roles to kind of simulate these government activities. So that could be media, judicial stuff. We run candidates for office, give speeches, vote, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when you think about, as a moderator of the Y Club and watching kids go through this process of mock government, what do you say are the kind of the most important skills and just learning opportunities within this extracurricular activity?
Yeah. Well, it's a real diverse club. Like, people get into it for all sorts of different reasons. Some people are very behind the scenes, and you never see them up on stage, and they're crucial. Just like kind of in any organization or in government or in society. Some people are very upfront and out there and very outspoken. They love to kind of articulate their views and that kind of thing. So I guess one of the reasons I really like it is that it's related to government. That's one thing. It's a real passion of mine, and I love our republic is dependent on engaged, informed citizens, and it's kind of who knows what will happen in the future if people continue to be less and less interested and less knowledgeable in government. So I feel like that's a great thing about the club that pulls me in, and I think it pulls some of the kids in too. Another thing is the club gives students like a way to learn about their state, to learn about other countries, and that kind of knowledge, especially if it's getting them outside of the halls of the school, is something that we always try to encourage.
Yeah. So JR, what I hear you say is that kids get the opportunity to really do a lot of different roles within this club. Some like to be out in front, some behind, but also the most important is that they learn about the systems that affect their lives in a little bit more deeper way, because they get to actually experience it. So one of the ways that they do for state government is the KYA conference, in which our students attended this past fall. So yes. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what is KYA? What does the conference kind of look like? Yeah. And just some takeaways from this past fall.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So in the fall semester, it all kind of revolves around preparing for the Kentucky Youth Assembly, the KYA, which is a mock state government. And we even go to the state capitol in Frankfurt, and we occupy like the same spaces that our state senators and state representatives occupy. It's very cool. And that's where we debate the bills. That's where the media corps run around and do interviews and film people. That's where, judicial stuff happens, where they debate whether a proposed rep bill is constitutional or not. So yeah, KYA is the state level. And something that's really great about that is we tend, living in Louisville, and maybe even South End, we were very familiar with issues close to us, but a lot of people don't know anything about like the eastern third of the state. They don't know anything about, Western Kentucky, Bowling Green. And when they get to the conference, there's anywhere from 6 to 1,200 students from all over the state, and they have to interact with them. They have to like build coalitions with them. They have to respectfully debate with them. And there's some downtime too, which is also great. And so they learn so much about other parts of the state, and they really get outside of kind of the Louisville box that so many of us are
yeah,
in.
that's true. That's true. We have to get out of our Louisville bubble sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was such a great experience when kids get to actually go to Frankfurt,
Definitely.
sit in those same exact chairs,
Definitely.
and really feel like, and get a sense that they are the future of the state.
Yeah.
And understanding the challenges that our state has, unique challenges. Kentucky is a very unique state in terms of our state government.
Absolutely.
But to really see themselves as being part of the future of, ensuring that all the state is taken care of.
Yes.
So the fall. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, just that's also one of the great things they get out of participating. We capture some of the idealism of youth and solving problems and really thinking outside of the box, which is great. But then we also see like some of the messiness of democracy and like some of the like how difficult it is to compromise, and how difficult it is to find solutions that are affordable and that don't upset too many groups, and
Right.
that kind of thing. So it's great experience for them.
Yeah. So the fall is all about KYA, state government, and now we're here in the spring, and we're talking to you guys today because you are very close to the next conference, which is CUNA.
Yes.
So we've got KYA, lots of different letters going on here.
Yeah.
CUNA. So tell our audience a little bit about what the CUNA conference is.
Okay, sure. So CUNA is a mock United Nations. So it's the Kentucky United Nations Assembly. And instead of, simulating Frankfurt and state government, we simulate the United Nations. So about, all like 200 countries of the world basically are represented in CUNA. So this attracts a lot of people who are maybe more interested in like multicultural things, or they're interested in other countries, or they want to travel, or a lot of those folks kind of come into the club in the spring, which is great. It tends to be a little bit more popular. That actually is not true this year, but historically that has been true, where CUNA is a little bit more popular. And it gets kids thinking about global issues that they would probably never, and most adults would never even think about.
Yeah. So the cool part about it is that each school gets an opportunity to kind of request the country or countries that they want to represent at the conference. So how does the White Club here at Holy Cross go about this process of deciding who we want to be?
Yeah. Strangely, it comes about in very different ways. I mean, it's really fun. It's a student-led club, and I really try to put as much responsibility in their hands as possible. And so sometimes it's like very collectively decided. Sometimes we have voted on it. Sometimes we've had like a series of runoff polls. This year, all of our countries start with the letter N, which I don't know if that's just coincidental or what, but I might defer to my two students here to talk a little bit more about that process. But we've represented a range of countries over the years, and every country has like its own challenges, of course, and like you have to the first step is just learning about that country. And what's really kind of unusual with the UN is, it operates in a lot of democratic ways that we're all familiar with, but like a lot of the countries are not democracies. So you learn some very strange things about like how other countries operate, which is great. I mean, it's just great. I like to say that like our Y Club kids know more about kind of the government, nationally and globally than most Americans.
Yeah, true.
Which is great.
Yeah. Is there, when you think about all the years that you've done Y Club here at Holy Cross, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, is there a particular country that you think Holy Cross really represented that country very well, the essence of what it means to be a citizen of that country?
Wow, that's cool. That's a really, well, let's see. We had a student maybe 6 years ago who had transferred here from, I think, Taiwan. And that was back when you did a lot more like costume creation and stuff. Kuna, YMCA is kind of cracked down a little bit on that kind of thing. Unfortunately, a lot of students really got into the like art and
creative,
physical, making like replicated street scenes from the countries, making like outfits and all this stuff. But back then we still did the outfits, and so we made a traditional like Taiwanese formal gown. Miss Weiter, of course, as she always does, helped out hugely, and it was beautiful. It was like an amazing dress that she sewed, Isabella sewed, and a few other students also contributed. And then we all had like matching, everybody had like matching hair pieces and that kind of thing. So that kind of stands out as a country that, and we learned a lot about Taiwan and like unique challenges that Taiwan has. And it was involved in some Security Council, UN Security Council simulations, as it often is, because it's right next to China, and China wants to kind of reclaim it. And so we really knocked it out of the park that year.
Well, you kind of had an expert too.
That's the thing.
That you had an expert in the room that could really speak to it. So that probably gave a whole different level of understanding. Yeah. For what that culture is.
It was cool.
Yeah. Well, anything else in terms of Y Club that you want to share with our audience?
Well,
we're so excited that you all are going to be representing. We'll find out in just a minute what countries that they'll be representing. Anything that you're in particular looking forward to this conference?
I mean, let's see. Kuna always is a lot of fun. I just love any kind of international perspective. Is just so great to see, for gratefulness for where we are, but also just kind of learning different ways the countries work together, as well as the different tension points they have. So I just look forward to seeing the kids in action. It's always so cool to be at these conferences with, like I mentioned earlier, like about 1,000 teenagers from all over the state, and just to see our students, interacting with these other kids and like applying a lot of the things that we talk all the time about, like here in the building. Like we get to see them apply it at the conferences. Yeah. Which is very cool, from, collaborative learning to like problem solving to eye contact to posture to just all this stuff from the whole spectrum of things we do here on campus. To see it in action is really
and even
great.
Though all these things are mock, it's those skills in the mock, government is what they're really learning, for future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thanks so much for, all your participation, the way you led the Y Club, and the kids. You kids always represent Holy Cross really well, and I know that's a lot. I know as much as you say it's student run, there's always a leader, kind of allowing that to happen.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate the work that you've done with the Y Club. So we're going to transition to bringing two of our Y Club members on set. So come on in, guys. All right, so we're here with two Y Club students. We are joined by two juniors who have been members of the Holy Cross chapter of the Y Club. So I'm here with Max Basham. Max, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Chessa Weiter, who's also a junior here. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
They're veterans. Mr. Rawlins chose you, so there's a reason. So we've talked a little bit. Hopefully our audience has learned a little bit about Y Club. If you didn't know what that is, it's a very important club, extracurricular activity here for our students. So I'm going to start with you, Max. Max, can you talk a little bit about what your experience with Y Club has been up to this point, and that can go beyond Holy Cross, and what's your favorite part of Y Club?
Okay, so I've been a part of the Y since 6th grade. I've done it KYA and Kuna ever since I was a 6th grader all the way back and at NDA. Then when I got to Holy Cross, I decided I want to be more of a leader in the Y Club and everything here. So last year, I decided I wanted to be vice president of our Y Club. So this year, I've been leading our Y Club and everything. And then at KYA this most recent year, I was elected EIC, or editor-in-chief, which basically means that I lead the media program here, or at KYA High School 3. So that's around 40 to 50 people like throughout the whole conference that control what you see on social media from the Y, some of the like broadcasting videos, a magazine, photography, photos, all of that's controlled by the media program. So I was elected through that and everything. So that's really cool. And then at Kuna, I normally do Security Council, which is what I'm doing this year. So Security Council is a representation of the UN Security Council and everything, where It's a country-led everything. There's what we call the Big Five nations, which are basically the most powerful nations across the globe. So there is the UK, the US, France, China, and Russia. We actually had the luck of getting a Big Five nation this year. So this year I will be representing China, of course. And so, yeah, I mean, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes because sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get that perspective in these places that you've never been or that we are, as Americans, sometimes see as the enemy in ways. So it's been really cool and really fun to do that. So, yeah, that's what I've been up to.
That's awesome. Thanks. All right, Chessa, so tell us a little bit about your history with the Y Club and kind of what you're currently into with the Holy Cross chapter.
Okay, so I originally joined Y Club once back as a 6th grader back at Notre Dame Academy. Back then, I'm a little bit shy, so I didn't actually speak much, and I was pretty uncomfortable in the club, so I didn't join it again for the next 2 years. I got back into it my sophomore year because I had friends in it, and they seemed like they were enjoying it, and I actually have a real big passion for history and culture and all that, so I figured I'd have fun with it. At the end of last year, I got elected to be the arts chair, which is basically I'm in charge of anything that's like visual representations of countries and other such things. So last year we had the country Fiji for Kuna. So I helped build the placard, which is basically a representation of our country. And basically it's my job to just try to represent that country to the best of our ability for the Parade of Nations. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so this coming, you can be the one to reveal to the audience what are the Holy Cross Kuna countries.
So this year, our Kuna chapter has Norway and Nepal.
Norway and Nepal, 2 N's.
Yes.
So what have you learned so far? Anything exciting that you've learned about either one of those countries that you didn't know?
So I'm actually part of one of the special area programs, so I don't deal directly with the countries as much as most of us would. But I remember when we were doing our initial planning for bills, I learned that Norway has pretty strict immigration policies, actually, because they're one of those first world countries, so they're really cracking down on who's entering just because they're getting an excess of immigrants. And then Nepal, they're very mountainous. Mm-hmm. They're like right on the edge of India. If you look at a map, they're just mountains everywhere. So resources are really hard for them, and they depend a lot on their imports for things.
Yeah. Well, you've learned a lot. Max, anything that you've learned about your country so far that you found pretty interesting?
Yeah, so similar thing to Chessa, I'm also a part of a special area program as the Security Council. So I don't directly deal with those countries as I'm not a regular ambassador. However, I've learned through China at least that they are awful when it comes to like human rights violations and stuff like that. And of course, that's the issue that we're assigned this year and everything. So basically, we're going to be debating about human rights violations, biological weapons, a bunch of different unique subjects that you wouldn't normally hear in regular debate just because they don't seem to be the biggest things or like an overarching topic. Mm-hmm. But they're very like specific into like the actual details of everything. So this year, one of the big issues under the major issue of the year, which is human rights violations, is the issue between China and Turkey right now. So there's been a lot of Turkish Muslims that are immigrating to China and everything, and China's been doing a lot of like incarcerations and everything when it comes to that, because they think they're trying to like spy on the country and everything like that. So one of the big overarching topics in that. So of course, I mean, that's the issue I was assigned and everything. So, yeah.
So when you're in that, I'm just curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as you represent China, are you called to answer and to debate as if you were a citizen of China and what their interests are? And do you find that to be sometimes in conflict to your kind of our American kind of thinking? How do you kind of see your role there?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a little difficult sometimes, of course, because they have such opposite views. However, what I've learned is that you mostly are debating as like a Chinese government official or like someone in power in the government, because Chinese citizens and Chinese government have very different views on everything. Chinese citizens are honestly more similar to Americans than they are to the government. So I'm having a debate as the government of China. So it's actually very difficult because they support human rights violations. They want people incarcerated and everything. So
Do you ever feel kind of torn that you're saying things that you don't necessarily?
Absolutely, yes.
You should. So if you're okay with with what you're doing, you're probably not representing necessarily in all aspects the truth for people for government officials in China.
Yes.
So, Chessa, talk a little bit about you mentioned kind of having a little bit of this in grade school and then coming back around to it sophomore year. And what are some things that you feel like you have noticed in yourself as you've been a part of it that you in areas that you've grown?
So I noticed that I joined sophomore year, and I, again, was very shy. I hadn't grown out of that very much. But I've noticed myself being a bit more confident as soon as I got to conference because there's just so many people. I challenged myself to talk to someone new at every conference, which was incredibly difficult, but I managed it. And really, I've just noticed myself paying attention to a lot more issues that aren't just affecting me. So I've seen a lot more like international news stories, and I've actually learned about those and things and then stuff within our own state, even though it's in like Western or Eastern, just outside of Louisville.
Yeah. So I'm going to rewind a little bit and go back to the KOA conference back in the fall. So Max, you talked a little bit about your experience in the KOA conference. Can you think about as the chapter as a whole, when you look back on that conference, what would you say would be some of the highlights of the Holy Cross chapter in the fall KOA?
So I would argue the big highlight throughout the whole thing was getting 2 POs or presiding officers.
Can you tell everybody a little bit about what that means?
Okay, so basically that means that these people will lead the whole conference. They will be on the stage in front of everyone, in front of 1,000+ kids and everything, sitting up there as one of 10, 11 people representing the whole group as a whole. And it's very cool and unique to be a presiding officer. I never thought I would be one, but I always wanted to be one. So it was really unique to get that. And it's me as the editor-in-chief, meaning I control the whole media program. And then there's Ryan Britz, who is the president of the Commonwealth Senate this year. He ran against several other great candidates at KYA, was elected to the 3rd most powerful position as the president of the Senate. So when we actually go to debate in the Senate, he will be controlling debate there.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like we got some good leadership in the broader chapter of the Y Club. So, Chessa, you're involved in the art part of CUNA. Mm-hmm. So have you started to work on the placard for the countries? What's the plan?
So as we have 2 countries this year, we came up with a sort of hierarchy to actually mitigate between that. So because I'm also part of a special area program, I have to focus on that.
Okay.
So I'm basically sort of a consultant just when people run out of ideas. So we have a head of each country, which is going to report to me or ask me questions about how they're going to develop their thing. I'm not exactly sure if we've gotten into art rooms for that yet, as I've been busy with my special area program stuff. Mm-hmm. But I believe we're on track for it.
Okay. So talk a little about I'm curious, your special area program. Tell me about that.
So I am part of the ICJ, which is the International Court of Justice, a portion of the UN that deals with international court cases, where this year I have the contentious case, where it's your normal everyday court case. There is a prosecutor and a defendant, and I'm not sure exactly how much I'm allowed to say about that when it comes to
Sounds serious. Well, I asked this question to Chessa, and Max, I'll ask you too. If you look back on your career in Y Club, and you're just a junior, so you got another year, what would you say is an area that you've really noticed in yourself has grown the most?
Yeah. So similar thing to Chessa, I feel like I've grown a lot socially and everything through Y Club. Going in 6th grade, I had a small group of friends. I was close with that group of friends. I didn't really get out of that circle much. But then when I went to conference for the first time, I was like, oh, there's people outside of Louisville. So that kind of like grew my mind grew my like vastness of like what Kentucky is and what Kentucky represents and everything. And then coming into high school, I'd grown up a little bit, of course, and everything. So I'd started to open up a little bit and everything, coming here to Holy Cross and all that. So when I started going to conference, I started meeting a lot of people. I've made great connections through the Y, from all over the state, from all the way down from Bowling Green to all the way to Glasgow to all the way to Eastern Kentucky. So yeah.
Awesome. So the conference is coming up. CUNA conference is coming up, and it is March. Tell me the dates.
March 24th, 25th to 26th.
Yeah, so it's 3 days. Holy Cross kids will be representing two in countries, Nepal and Norway, which are vastly different, but they're gonna represent it well. And I just appreciate you guys so much being great leaders in that program. And I wish you all the best of luck in representation, and you bring back all the awards. Right?
Yep.
Okay. All the awards, we're bringing them
course.
back. And we can't wait to hear how you guys do on the conference. So thanks for your leadership. And thank all of you for watching today on CrossTalk. Our next week, we are going to hear from 2 Holy Cross board members, why they serve on the board and why Holy Cross is important to them. If you have a question for them, feel free on our YouTube channel to pose a question. You can ask one of the board members. And if you are not following us on our YouTube channel, remember you can follow us on any podcast, all the different podcast channels. CrossTalk is there. So we'll see you next time.